Welcome back to the Panic Room, everyone, for a very special video today. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all of the works of Donald Ray Pollock. Now, I know that sounds like a huge undertaking, but there's only 3. And thankfully, because I have a wonderful friend by the name of Rooftop, I actually have all 3 of his books here with me. So we're going to be talking about these today. And I am not going to be reviewing any of these in depth, but I have read them all recently, and I thought you guys might be interested to see which one I like the best. So let's do a little bit of ranking, shall we? We'll talk about the pros, the cons, what I liked, what I didn't like, all that jazz. So let's start with 3rd place. For 3rd place, it's gonna get spicy right out of the gate. I'm gonna give 3rd place to The Heavenly Table. Now, but don't go anywhere. This doesn't mean I don't like it, okay? I did. I actually thought this was amazing. The Heavenly Table read to me like, almost like a horror western sitcom, you know? Because you were following these 3 brothers, Cobb, Chimney, and Cain, and you get so invested in their journey, it's crazy. And it's, I guess because of the time period it's set in, like, you know, you've got horses, it's the early 1900s, and I was just like thrown back to all these like gunslinging sitcoms, you know. I enjoyed that. It wasn't my favorite of the Pollock books simply because it seemed to not elicit a visceral reaction out of me, which we'll get into with the other 2. But it was a damn good story. And please don't think that it lacked anything when it comes to horror, because it didn't. It had that signature Pollock gag-inducing scenery that we have all grown to love in Pollock's work. It definitely had that. And you know what? I will still say all 3 of these had that almost like sneaky horror, you know? Like, a good example of this is there was a scene in The Heavenly Table pretty early on where one of the main characters of one of the storyline arcs is like driving his mule and cart into town, and it talks about how he like hawks some phlegm and spits it on the like donkey's butt, and just the description of how it like looked, I want to gag now. So yeah, it's definitely not lacking in that. For me, I put it at 3 simply because the other 2 just seemed to hit me harder than this one. It was a great story, probably the most story-like of the 3. You know, if you're looking for something where you can just really sink your teeth into, you know, a plot or a journey, this is the one for you. Definitely. Because you've got some excellent characters, and you get to stick with them for a while, so you really get to know them. And I have to say, I really loved seeing the 3 brothers grow. Even though I kind of knew where we were heading, it didn't ruin the journey for me. So, number 3. The Heavenly Table. So number 2, I gotta give it to Knock 'em Stiff. So I loved the way this book was constructed, and that's probably what bumped it to number 2. Because the way the book is set up, you get these different chapters from all these different sections of the town, and I loved that. As I read this, I felt like I was a fly, like buzzing around the town of Knock 'em Stiff. And, you know, I was seeing this scene, and this scene, and this scene, and it was such a good combination because some of them were like, okay, all right, that happened. And then some of them were like, what the hell? You know, so it was a really great mix. And I feel like it kept the reader, you know, going throughout the entirety of the book. Even though each story was different, you still had that cohesive nature of all being in the same town. I said in my review for this book that it was almost like small town gossip. You know, like you were getting snippets of small town gossip, you know, oh, so-and-so's doing this. Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? That was sort of the feeling it gave me after I would finish each story. And there was some really like punch you in the gut kind of scenes that I can't say I experienced in The Heavenly Table so much. And that is something I've really come to love about Pollock, is that he takes these mundane settings, these otherwise bland characters, and just absolutely smacks you in the face with some kind of horror, and does it beautifully. So yeah, number 2, Knock 'em Stiff. And for number 1, I really don't think anyone's surprised. It was actually my first introduction to Pollock, The Devil All the Time. I would like to say that my opinion of this book was unbiased, but it's not. This was one of the first books that I read that really took place very close to my hometown. And as such, it allowed me to sort of revisit my home where I grew up. And it really did affect me on a different level, because in this book, you know, there are places that are mentioned that I've been personally. And that changes things, you know? It really brings the book to life. But beyond that, the story itself is just absolutely amazing. It is a story much in the same way that The Heavenly Table is. You know, it's a cohesive story. It's not like bits and pieces like you have in Knock 'em Stiff. But to me, the difference is with The Devil All the Time, the story is a little bit more bleak. It doesn't give you any hope, I guess you could say. Whereas with The Heavenly Table, I retained a little bit of a glimmer of hope for the boys. With The Devil All the Time, that really wasn't there. The hits just kept coming for, you know, Arvin and Sandy and all of our other main characters. And really, I think the only, I guess what you would call positive in the whole book was, you know, cheering for Arvin on his little, like, journey of vengeance. But overall, the book is very, very bleak as far as, you know, futures for these characters. And in true Pollock fashion, does not lack in the horror. In a lot of ways, you know, Knock 'em Stiff probably had more in-your-face, like, pearl-clutching kind of horror, but for some reason, this kind of was more personal because you had time to get to know these characters. You know, Arvin is a great example. With all the absolute batshit insanity that happens to this boy, you know, you come to feel bad for him in a way you couldn't for the characters in Knock 'em Stiff because you weren't with them for that long. You were with Arvin for the entirety of this book, so when the next bad thing happened to him, you know, it really was like, damn, you know, for the reader. And I think that's why I love this book the best, you know? There's a lot of reasons, but I really feel like this is just the perfect showcase of Pollock's work. You have his ability to just gross you out, you have his wonderful horror scenes, and you get his storytelling ability. You know, whereas the other two, you get those things, but they're separate. You know, for Knock 'em Stiff, you get his more horror, you know, you get his, you know, ability to gross you out or to set a scene. And then with The Heavenly Table, you get his amazing storytelling ability. Both of those, to me, come together in The Devil All the Time. And that's why it's my number one. So guys, I know a little bit short of a video, but I really thought this was cool. It's not every day that I read every work by an author. And I was actually shocked that Pollock only had 3 books, so. But guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Tell me down below, do you agree with me? Do you not? If you don't, let me know. Tell me which one of these is your favorite if you've read them all. Do you want to read one of them? I want to know. Tell me down below. But thanks guys for hanging out for another video. Please like and subscribe. It would really help me out. And until next time, bye for now.